Loading the back leg is one of the biggest problems that amateurs face in their backhand form. Today I'm going to give you 3 tips that's going to help you load your back leg for big distance, but more importantly, effortless distance. Let's get into it. I'm going to do all 3 tips in the studio, but before I do, I want to hop in the film room here and point out what a good back leg load looks like. I'm going to use a student before and after as an example of someone who was going towards the front leg, now loading the back leg more efficiently. So I'm going to be showing you Tanner Young, who was the 2023 College Disc Golf National Champion right there. You may have seen him on coverage right here if you pay attention to that stuff. Definitely go give Tanner a follow on Instagram. Also forgot to mention that he plays for the University of Cincinnati. So shout out to the University of Cincinnati disc golf team. Let's go. I'm going to use Eagle for an example, and I'm going to leave a link to this video in the description. This Anthem Disc Golf just has by far the best slow-mo footage that exists right now on the internet, so go give them a follow. Shout out to them. That is the loaded position. That's a loaded back leg. I'm going to tell you how to get into this position in the studio in a moment, but I want to show you an example of not doing this, then doing this. Sorry this is so pixelated, but this was the first footage he sent me a few years back, and this is just what it looks like. Notice the upper body in relation to the back leg here as you load the back leg. Loaded position. Tanner was, you can already feel his weight going over the top just right now. His upper body is just headed more towards the front leg. It's not going at the back leg, if that makes sense. This is the difference between the front leg load and the back leg load, because, and definitely check out your own form and look at it in comparison to Eagle. Is your leg a little more straight here instead of popped out? Is your upper body trajectory going forward instead of going against your back leg? You can see how he's leaned forward. This is Tanner now, going at the back leg more, which pops the back leg out like that. That leg, you have to be loading it correctly for it to look like that. It's mainly just how his body is working against this leg. So before we started working together, he was a 430-foot golf line. Now he's about 480, 490. We're still working. He accidentally hit 560 the other day. That's 60 feet farther than he throws usually. So obviously we are still figuring out how to tap into that consistently, but ultimately it's just a way more professional loaded position. So this is what you want to look for in your form. Tip number 1 has to do with momentum. If you're going to learn to load the back leg, you have to put yourself in a position to actually be able to execute it. Most players can't properly control this much momentum right here. That may seem a little wild because I was going so slow, but ultimately, if you can't do the right things going that slow, how are you going to do the right things going faster than that? The reason this is important is I want you to go this slow when you're learning to load your back leg, when you're learning X-stepping or backhand form at all. Ow. Slingshot snap, it's just cold in here and that hurt really bad. Tip number 2 has to do with coiling. Now I'm not going to do a huge coiling breakdown, but this video right here, I'll leave a link in the description, gives a much more in-depth breakdown. Shoulder coil, slingshot coil. So tip number 2 is when you X-step, you have to wait to coil. Not coiled, back leg not coiled, Heisman position not coiled. As you drift, then you're going to coil. The proper coil during the stride is what loads your back leg. The big mistake that I see people making is they get on the back leg and they start coiling too soon. They open the back hip. Ultimately, their weight is on top of the leg. So they end up going like this and their leg looks like this instead of like that, right? That's not loading your back leg. Loading your back leg would look like this. You can see how that leg pops out. Practice X-stepping, balancing in that Heisman position where you're not coiled, coiling while you stride. So from the back view, this would be coiling too soon. There we go, that's loaded. These are pretty small details, but they matter. Now the third tip is actually something I struggle with a lot when I'm just throwing in front of a net. Uncoiling too early looks like something that you'll probably find familiar. Watch this front leg. Coiling, uncoiling. You're gonna open that leg, right? You're gonna get in that horse stance. So what you wanna do, let's say I'm coiled, you wanna make sure that that front foot gets planted on the ball of the foot, pressure busting out the side of the toe, while you're still coiled, which means you're still loaded. Then you'll unload. The key to that, what I'm talking about, is being able to load your back leg while getting your front foot, the ball of the foot, on the ground and stable, but without jamming all the weight there, right? I don't need to go into the front leg technique, but I'll give you an example of what that would feel like. If I get rid of the disc and I start going like this, right? When I go like that, which replicates basketball or football, right? Then that moment that that foot touches, all the weight goes onto that leg. Do that, feel that. It's not what a brace feels like. Not at all. Because when you do that, all the weight's there, you've de-weighted this, you're gonna look like this. Then your back leg's gonna flop, and you're gonna look really goofy. Those are the three principles that should help you load your back leg and unload it at the right time. Hopefully that was helpful. Slingshots for everybody. Just a quick side note, I teach foot first extension timing. And if you slow down my form, you notice I do that every time. Foot lands, extend. But if you do extend early, that's okay. Gannon Burr does that. Numerous players do that. So coil extended a little too early before the foot lands. What matters is that you hold that coil until the foot lands and then uncoil. You just don't want to uncoil early. And people who extend early, most of the time, they'll extend early and then throw early, and then they open up that front leg.